The science of the next global calamity, emerging superbugs. Imagine this, a world where antibiotics no longer work. Infections that were once easily treatable become deadly. Procedures like surgeries or organ transplants become risky, as there's no guarantee that the body's defenses can win the fight. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Yet, this is not a fictional scenario, but a very real threat lurking just around the corner. These dangers are coming in the form of superbugs, bacteria that have evolved to withstand even the most powerful antibiotics we have. Today, we dive deep into the science behind emerging superbugs and explore why they could be the next global calamity. What are superbugs? Superbugs are bacteria that have developed resistance to multiple antibiotics. The term antibiotic resistance refers to the ability of a microorganism, in this case bacteria, to resist the effects of drugs that once killed or inhibited them. When bacteria become resistant, it means the usual treatments for infections become less effective, and the infections become harder to treat. Resistance can happen in several ways. Some bacteria can mutate in response to antibiotics, developing new traits that allow them to survive. Others can exchange genetic material through a process called horizontal gene transfer, which means they can pick up resistance from other bacteria. Over time, these superbugs can multiply and spread, making once simple infections deadly. The scale of this challenge is already staggering. Each year, infections caused by drug-resistant microbes claim millions of lives worldwide, and this number is projected to escalate dramatically in the coming decades. This silent pandemic is not just a medical concern. It has far-reaching implications for our economies, our food security, and the very fabric of modern healthcare. Understanding the science behind this growing crisis and the factors fueling its progression is crucial to mounting an effective response before the tide irrevocably turns. The discovery of antibiotics in the mid-20th century ushered in an age of miracles, revolutionizing medicine and transforming previously lethal infections into easily treatable conditions. These groundbreaking drugs, once hailed as wonder cures, saved countless lives and fueled unprecedented advancements in healthcare. However, this era of triumph is now facing a formidable challenge. Bacteria, in their relentless drive to survive, have demonstrated an uncanny ability to adapt to these antimicrobial weapons, gradually rendering them ineffective. This evolutionary arms race, where scientists develop new drugs only to see bacteria evolve resistance, is tilting dangerously in the favor of the microbes. The very success and widespread use of antibiotics have inadvertently laid the groundwork for the current crisis, creating a selection pressure that favors the survival and proliferation of drug-resistant strains. To truly grasp the gravity of the situation, it is essential to understand what exactly constitutes a superbug. At its core, a superbug is a microorganism, primarily bacteria, but also encompassing fungi, viruses, and parasites, that has developed resistance to one or more classes of antimicrobial drugs. The underlying phenomenon driving the emergence of these superbugs is antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, a process where these tiny organisms evolve mechanisms to evade the effects of medications designed to kill or inhibit their growth. This resistance makes infections caused by superbugs significantly harder and sometimes impossible to treat, leading to prolonged illness, increased healthcare costs, and a higher risk of mortality. Superbugs don't appear overnight. They are the result of years of human behavior, poor hygiene, and misuse of antibiotics. In fact, one of the primary drivers of antibiotic resistance is the overuse and misuse of antibiotics. This includes overprescribing antibiotics. In some cases, doctors prescribe antibiotics even when they aren't needed, such as for viral infections like the common cold. Self-medication. People sometimes take leftover antibiotics or self-prescribe them without medical advice, contributing to the development of resistance. Inadequate treatment. Not finishing the full course of antibiotics as prescribed can leave behind some bacteria that survive and become resistant. Agricultural use. Antibiotics are often used in farming to promote growth in healthy animals or prevent disease in crowded conditions. This overuse contributes significantly to the development of resistant strains. When these behaviors are repeated over time, bacteria have more opportunities to evolve resistance, and as resistance spreads, the risk of superbugs grows. Hey guys, just a moment before we continue. Be sure to join the Insane Curiosity channel. Click on the bell. You'll help us to make products of even higher quality. The science behind superbugs. How do they evolve? To understand how superbugs emerge, let's take a look at the science of bacterial evolution. Bacteria are incredibly small organisms that reproduce rapidly. When they reproduce, their DNA is copied. Occasionally, there are mistakes in this copying process, mutations. Some of these mutations might help the bacteria survive in the presence of an antibiotic. For example, a mutation could allow a bacterium to produce an enzyme that breaks down the antibiotic before it can kill the bacteria. Or a mutation could allow the bacterium to pump the antibiotic out of its cells before it can have any effect. When a population of bacteria is exposed to an antibiotic, most of the bacteria will be killed, but those that have beneficial mutations survive. These survivors can then reproduce, passing on their resistance traits to their offspring. In the world of bacteria, this process happens incredibly quickly, sometimes within hours. But bacteria don't just evolve resistance on their own. They can share genetic material with other bacteria. Through horizontal gene transfer, bacteria can exchange pieces of DNA, including those that carry antibiotic resistance. This means that a bacterium with a resistance gene can share that gene with another, and suddenly a whole new population of bacteria becomes resistant to the antibiotic. The ability of bacteria to outsmart our drugs is a testament to the power of natural selection and their remarkable genetic flexibility. Resistance to antibiotics often arises through random genetic mutations within a bacterial population. When these bacteria are exposed to an antibiotic, susceptible individuals are killed, while those with mutations that confer resistance survive and reproduce, passing on their advantageous genes to subsequent generations. This process, known as selective pressure, drives the evolution of antibiotic-resistant strains. Superbugs have already started to make their presence felt. One of the most well-known superbugs is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA. MRSA was once confined to hospitals, where it was primarily spread by contaminated equipment or healthcare workers. However, over the years, MRSA has spread into the wider community and has become resistant to a variety of antibiotics, making it harder to treat. Another dangerous superbug is carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, or CRE. This group of bacteria is resistant to carbapenems, which are antibiotics often used as a last resort for infections caused by other resistant bacteria. Infections with CRE can be difficult, if not impossible, to treat, and they are often fatal. Then we have the notorious Neisseria gonorrhoeae, the bacterium responsible for gonorrhea. In recent years, this sexually transmitted infection has become resistant to nearly all antibiotics used to treat it. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has classified it as one of the highest priority pathogens in the global fight against antibiotic resistance. These are just a few examples of superbugs that are already a major threat to global health. As we continue to overuse antibiotics, we can expect more and more bacteria to evolve into deadly superbugs. So, why are superbugs a global calamity waiting to happen? The rise of superbugs is not just a medical concern, it's a global crisis in the making. Here's why. 1. Global spread. The ease with which bacteria can travel across borders means that a resistant infection in one country can quickly spread to others. International travel, trade, and migration all play a role in accelerating the spread of resistant bacteria. 2. Lack of new antibiotics. While bacteria are evolving resistance, the development of new antibiotics is lagging behind. The last new class of antibiotics was discovered decades ago, and the pipeline for new drugs is running dry. Pharmaceutical companies have little incentive to develop new antibiotics because the market for them is limited. Antibiotics are typically used for short periods and are often consumed in large quantities, meaning the financial return on investment is not as high as it is for chronic medications. 3. Routine medical procedures at risk. Antibiotics are essential not only for treating infections, but also for preventing them during routine medical procedures. Surgeries, organ transplants, cancer treatments, all of these rely on effective antibiotics to prevent infections. Without them, these procedures would carry significant risks. 4. Impact on public health. Infections caused by superbugs are harder to treat, leading to longer hospital stays, more intensive care, and higher mortality rates. The global health burden would increase dramatically, with more people dying from infections that we once thought were easily treatable. 5. The economic toll. Superbugs won't just cost lives, they will also cost money. The global economy would suffer as the burden of superbugs on healthcare systems increases. Hospitalizations, prolonged treatments, and the development of new antibiotics would require massive investments. In addition, businesses and industries could face worker shortages due to illness. The science of prevention and solutions. So what can we do to prevent this global calamity? While the problem of antibiotic resistance is daunting, there are steps we can take to fight back. One of the most important measures is the responsible use of antibiotics. Doctors need to prescribe antibiotics only when necessary, and patients should follow their prescriptions to the letter. This can help slow down the development of resistance. Hospitals and healthcare facilities can take steps to prevent the spread of superbugs by implementing rigorous infection-controlled practices. This includes strict hand hygiene, sterilizing equipment, and isolating patients with resistant infections. Scientists are working to discover new antibiotics, but this is an uphill battle. More funding and resources need to be dedicated to the development of new drugs. Additionally, we need alternative treatments such as phage therapy, which uses viruses to target and kill bacteria. People need to understand the importance of using antibiotics wisely. Public education campaigns can help raise awareness about the dangers of self-medication and the importance of completing prescribed courses of antibiotics. Antibiotic resistance is a global problem that requires a global solution. Countries must collaborate on surveillance, research, and prevention efforts to tackle superbugs. The emergence of superbugs is a looming threat that could redefine the future of medicine and global health. While we may not be able to stop the evolution of bacteria, we can certainly slow it down. It will require a concerted effort from individuals, healthcare professionals, pharmaceutical companies, and governments worldwide. As we move forward, let's remember that science is not just about understanding the world, it's also about acting on that understanding. We know what causes superbugs, and we know how to prevent them. Now it's time for all of us to take responsibility and do our part in combating this growing crisis. We must act before the next global calamity becomes a reality.